Colts predictably are making things difficult with their demands. They don't want to pay Jonathan Taylor what he's worth, but they do want to ask for that in return from a team potentially trying to acquire him. It's truly big brain stuff. Offer if they want market value in return for Jonathan Taylor, even though they are not interested in actually paying him themselves, it actually feels kind of difficult to see a deal getting done. There's plenty of backfields. Let's start with the fact that there's only about 7 or 8 teams that you can rule out as far as attempting to acquire Jonathan Taylor. San Francisco, because they have McCaffrey. Cleveland, because they have Nick Chubb. Atlanta, because they just drafted Bijan Robinson. The Giants, because they have Saquon Barkley. The Raiders, because they have Josh Jacobs, who is also reportedly, and he is ending his holdout reportedly and will report to the Denver, or for the Raiders against the Denver Broncos for week 1. Presumably, that's been the latest news in Josh Jacobs' world. So the Raiders aren't a suitor here. Tennessee is not a suitor. 1, because they have Derrick Henry, and who they're paying a ton of money to, and 2, it would be a division trade. So that's not going to happen. The Chargers are not an option, because they're paying plenty of money to Austin Eckler, and I'll just throw Houston and Jacksonville in that list as well. Regardless of whether they're interested, I don't think the Colts are going to send Jonathan Taylor to a division rival. Those types of trades don't really happen. Outside of that, and I guess you could throw the Jets in there, I guess, as well, right? Because they just drafted Breece Hall. They just signed Dalvin Cook. They're probably out, you would think. And I guess maybe to go along with the mantra of teams that just spent a first-round pick on a running back, I guess it's possible you could throw the Lions in there as well, since they just used a first-round pick to select Jahmyr Gibbs. So maybe those teams are out on Jonathan Taylor. Any team I didn't just name should absolutely be in on Jonathan Taylor. The problem will be if the Colts are willing to accept less than market value for a guy that they're not willing to pay market value to. If Jonathan Taylor is still on the PUP list next week, he's going to have to miss the first 4 games of the season by rule. So maybe that fast tracks Jonathan Taylor getting traded between now and next week. If it doesn't happen within the next week, I think the odds are, for better or worse, however we feel about it, however the Colts feel about it, however Jonathan Taylor feels about it, if he's still on the PUP list this time next week and a trade has not been completed by that point, he's going to probably be a Colt for at least at least well into the season, the first month of the season, which I guess is still not necessarily a death knell for Jonathan Taylor's season, because he could still get traded mid-season if a contending team suffers an injury to a running back and they feel they have to make a move, which is certainly something that can play out. But that's still going to make it difficult to predict and project anything fantasy-wise with Jonathan Taylor. Other than, are you willing to spend a late 3rd pick on a guy who, again, if he's on the PUP list this time next week, will miss the first 4 weeks of the season, and at that point we're just begging, hoping for a trade to go down. That's a tough pill to swallow if you're considering Jonathan Taylor, and he might even fall to the 4th round at this point. So it's a tough sell wanting to draft Jonathan Taylor at least right now. So if you have drafts coming up, if they're happening this weekend, if drafts are happening this weekend and Taylor is still on the PUP list, I think you gotta say do not draft. I think you gotta roll the dice on something safe for somebody who is still going to be a really good player because he's got an ADP of the 3rd or 4th round, late 3rd, early 4th round, who without a shadow of a doubt is going to play week 1. If you're drafting this Sunday, you're hoping a trade materializes this week, but you're also in turn asking the Colts to presumably accept much less than they're willing to offer or to acquire in addition or as a result of Jonathan Taylor's services being traded out. So, yeah, obviously keep an eye on this, but if you draft this weekend and Taylor is still on the PUP list, still an Indianapolis Colt, I don't think I would draft him. I was super bullish on him in the beginning of the offseason, earlier in the offseason. But this relationship between Taylor and the team has completely spiraled out. I do not think you can, in good conscience, consider drafting him unless he falls to, I guess, like the 4-5 turn. If a trade doesn't materialize.